the city of Chicago, the 20s roared louder than any other in America. The nation was prosperous and looking up, and many said Prohibition had brought it there. But the ideal of a sober nation was just a mask. The real face of America could be found in the gutter, an underworld supplying a wet America.
It makes no difference if it's sweet or hot.
Behind its dry facade, the nation was drinking. Hypocrisy was at the very heart of Prohibition. Its double standards had created an America with two faces. But in 1929, one event in Chicago revealed the true face of Prohibition America. One of America's bloodiest peacetime killings came out of Prohibition. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre terrified the country and set America on the road to repeal.
The whole thing was in the newspapers, and it was such a shocking event that I think, was definite that Prohibition had to go. They murdered the 7 of them right like that. And I think that was really a turning point to people in the cities, you know, that said, this is the end.
To the nation, Prohibition had failed. It had created these gangsters. The movement to repeal the law gathered such support that within 2 years they dared to challenge the 18th Amendment to the United States Constitution. 1928, the beer wars had resulted in 367 murders and 115 bombs in the city. But in the following year, the violence would culminate in a massacre which even shocked Chicago. It rocked America.
About 10 o'clock that morning, which was Valentine's Day, 1929, I believe, I got a call and told me to go to 2122 something North Clark Street. Well, as I got there was a police officer in front, and he was not going to let me in, and I just shoved my way in. I got on top of I don't know, I'll call it a truck or whatever it was, and shot down pictures and then I got off of this truck and made about a half a dozen different photographs of these bodies.
They had been shot, just half a dozen of them lying there, some of them with their heads, top of their head blown off. A river of blood, really, a terrific amount, let's put it that way. And a wild shepherd dog, German shepherd, going crazy at the end of a chain, lunging at anybody and everybody. Very curious thing, it became a sideshow in Chicago. Every reporter in town, virtually, came there to look at it. Most of the politicians came to take a look at it. The place was a parade of people, and there was this lineup of corpses in a tangle and in a mess. It was not a pleasant sight.
7 bullet-riddled bodies, Bugs Moran's henchmen. They had tried to hijack one of Capone's liquor trucks. Jack Machine Gun McGurn, Capone's right-hand man, had shown Chicago exactly who was the boss.
Willis O'Rourke of the Chicago Evening American went in and looked it over and came out, looked down at his feet, and said, "I got more brains on my feet than I have in my head," which I remember because it was an apt remark, gruesome but apt. And also, the Evening American that evening carried a great line, "Chicago gangsters graduated from killings to massacres," which was true.
With the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, the whole of America woke up to the true face of Prohibition. The newspapers, with their stark pictures, crystallized Chicago's entire bloody history into an instant of horror. Millions of Americans realized that Prohibition had created Al Capone. that he was the man behind the massacre, the feelings against him and Prohibition intensified. People looked to the repealists for an answer, but the National Association Against the Prohibition Amendment seemed only concerned with cold statistics and dull taxes. It was the wives of this millionaire club who captured the hearts of America and the feeling of the time. In the wake of the St. Valentine's Day massacre, Pauline Sabin, a politically active aristocratic New Yorker, launched the Women's Organization for National Prohibition Reform. A decade before, the women of America had been Prohibition's most impassioned supporters. Seeing themselves as guardians of the home and morality, they fought to close the saloons. Prohibition had promised to protect their family and children from the evils of drink. But by the end of the 20s, Sabin said that Prohibition had failed. American children were growing up in a lawless world where drinking was fashionable. With no age limits, young people could go to speakeasies serving unregulated liquor. They didn't know what they were drinking.